Hey everyone, I think I'm live. Let's see. Yeah, the right little letter thing is bouncing. Good, good, good. Hey everyone, welcome. I wasn't here last week because of Easter. Yeah, here this week. So hope everybody's doing well. Oh, hello, Masoud. Hi. All right, first one here. Dig Dug Dumpling. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, it's been like another crazy week, which is always par for the course. I seem to never ever get stuff done. It's not just my YouTube videos that have struggled or have suffered, though. I also did not get work accomplished. But this week I had to take some time off because our elderly dog had to go to the vet and have like a mass removed, and the vet thinks it's cancerous, and so that's being sent in. And then a friend of mine passed away who was part of a Linux lug here in Michigan. That's kind of devastating. He was somebody who used to tune into the live stream as well. So it's been a rough week. And then tomorrow, two big things are happening in my life. Well, one thing in my life. I get braces tomorrow. Not looking terribly forward to that. Just on the bottom, but getting braces and also the solar eclipse here in the US. I am not in the path of totality, but a lot of my friends are. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting day tomorrow. We get we get partial eclipse here. It's going to be like 88% of totality. So anyway, that's a scoop. So we're all caught up. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Just kidding. That's about all the new news that I have going on. Though there's just non seems like chaos every week. I don't know. My wife and I have this image that we text each other back and forth. Here, I'll try to find it because it's kind of funny. Let's see. Come on. Favorites. I'll just hold it up to the camera. I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, though. Um, yeah, adulthood is saying, but after this week, things will slow down a bit over and over until you die. That just seems very apropos of late. Thanks, Dig Dug Dumpling. I appreciate that. I didn't have braces as a kid. In fact, I mean, I've talked about this before on the live stream, but my teeth. I mean, I have a lot of health issues and a lot of downfalls, but my teeth have always been strong and straight, and I didn't have a cavity until well into my adulthood. I actually do have cavities that I have to have filled now, and I even have a what is it called when they put a crown? Is that the thing? I think it's a crown. Um, that sucks. But anyway, I always had straight teeth, and then I had an injury in my bottom too, and now in order to fix it, I have to get braces. So, White Moose, hello, 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 hello. Yeah. So anyway, my friend Ben is in the path of totality tomorrow. He gets like over 3.5 minutes of darkness, which is kind of cool. I'm stoked for him. It'll dim here slightly, um, quite a bit. I mean, 88%. It'll be noticeable. So anyway, um, I did send my daughter to uh, the store to pick up some eclipse glasses if they have any left, just in case anybody in the family wants to look up. I'd prefer them not burn out their retinas. So, OB, hello. Oh, from Nigeria. Awesome. Very cool. Or very warm. I don't know. It's the weather here is, I mean, finicky, but um, it's decent today. It's sunny and probably in the 50s Fahrenheit. So, anyway, yeah, I don't have anything planned other than I didn't want to not live stream. Thank you, Masoud. I appreciate that. So the it's funny. One of my friends, I won't call her out. She's somebody who appreciates online privacy, but We worked together for a long time, and when I started doing YouTube, um, she said, "Well, every YouTuber has to have like a pineapple hidden somewhere in their background." And so the only way she could find a suitable pineapple was to send me the set. So I have Squidward and SpongeBob houses, and yeah, I had forgotten that I put the Squidward house next to it. But yeah, thank you. That was the set was a gift, and I'm pretty sure I don't remember for sure, but I think there might be cookies. Let me see. Cookies. Yeah, ginger snaps in Squidward's head. I don't know if there's anything in the SpongeBob thing. Yeah. No. But Squidward has cookies inside. So anyway. Um Mason. Oh, yeah. Oh, you get to a live stream. Yeah, your time did change. I think last week. I was a week off. The week before it hadn't changed yet. And I think you guys changed last week on Easter Sunday. Um, of course, then I didn't stream that day. But yeah, I think we're on the same daylight saving time thing now. So that's cool. But yeah, anyway, I'm trying to think. I just don't have a whole lot of other news going on. The big stuff in my current future are braces, which I'm just, uh, every Linux YouTuber has at least a penguin everywhere. Yeah. Well, I mean, so here, let me. We go. No. Oh, let's say move that. There you go. There's Tux back there, and a Yoshi egg, and I mean Linux Journal magazine on the wall, and yeah. But yeah, I do have SpongeBob. So let's see. Is that no? There we go. But yeah, I do have and it's Tux. Oh, look, there he's now he is in frame. How cool is that? So that is the Tux animated robot that I got to do a couple things. But then I kinda lost hope. The thing is they were discontinued and somebody bought the old stock, and then I bought a couple, and there was gonna be a giveaway, but I never got it working well enough that I felt confident. Basically, it uses really old 32-bit libraries, but it has text to speech, and he can open and close his eyes, and he can, like, flap his little wings, and, he can spin around, and his beak opens and closes, his eyes open and shut and light up. He's pretty cool, but he's really difficult to get working because it was all created during the time of 32-bit everything, and I just never got to the point where I could interface with it really well. I actually considered gutting it and trying to reuse the servos and stuff to and just do something more modern, like just hook it up to an Arduino or a Raspberry Pi or something, the GPIO ports. But yeah, so far he's just sitting there. Yeah. Lydia, hi. Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, there is. Oh yeah, little Garfield too. I have, and let's see if I can turn tracking back on. If we go, I don't know if it'll turn. Yeah, so tiny. I'm a big Garfield fan. So yeah, there's a Garfield. Oh, okay, where can my finger point properly? Yeah, there's a Garfield. And then here is the mouse from Poorly Drawn Lines, which you can't see really well, but he's there anyway. And yeah. Oh, Hip Dad, hello again. Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of planned anything today. So if anybody has anything they want to talk about, just say the word. Um, it's so the this I don't know if it's because I actually don't know why. It's just this solar eclipse just seems to be all over like everything. Everybody's talking about it. I mean, I know it goes through a huge swath of the US. Maybe that's why I'm hearing so much about it. But yeah, that's it seems like everybody's just talking about it. What do I think about being both Linux Plus and LFCS certified as an undergrad? Can that set me apart in any way? Um, Very possibly. The yeah, it's frustrating because a lot of they'll have a lot of the same materials in there, but more initials after your name might get you past the first level of interviewing or weeding out stuff if you're looking to get a job. Um, and same thing with LPIC one. So I mean, LPIC one, LFCS, Linux Plus, they're different, but they have the same kind of level of information. And so, um, having multiple of those, I don't know that it proves that you have a lot more skill, but it definitely shows that you have, a passion for Linux, and it might, tick boxes if number of certifications, is one of the things that they filter on. So anyway, course on Google. That's new for me. Could you get more info about that? Coursera. Um, course on Google. I mean, I'm making Google courses for my employer. I work at CBT Nuggets again now. I started the end of last year. And so I'm creating Google Cloud certification courses for them. I can't put any of that um, online publicly. That doesn't even belong to me. I'm making it for them. But that's what I've been training, or what I've been creating a lot, which is why I haven't been doing stuff on my YouTube channel a ton. Um, Hip Dad Eclipse, meh. I mean, so I just posted on Twitter that there was a there was a an eclipse. I think it was partial, because I don't remember there being a total eclipse around that time. But in the 90s, when I was going to college up at Michigan Tech, there was probably a partial eclipse. And rather than all like the glasses and the ISO standard for filtering and stuff, we would just look through floppy disks. We'd open up the little metal window and look through the Mylar disk that the magnetic stuff was stored on. And I don't know. I'm actually a little curious if that is dark enough, to be considered safe. I mean, that's what everybody had floppy disks, so we would just open that up, look through there, and you could see you could look at the sun. Um, they kind of, I think they're about as dark as welding goggles, and I don't think welding goggles are like considered dark enough for looking directly at the sun. So they probably weren't safe, but they were better than looking up at the sun, naked eyed. So anyway, Hun GD Moni, what is my name? My name is Sean Powers. Yeah, that's my name. I was doing the Linux Plus, and someone on LinkedIn decided could go for the LFCS instead and actually pay for it. Oh, cool. So yeah, let me pop that up and I'll respond to that. Uh, yeah, and I'll be honest. If you do take the LFCS course, it was performance based when I took it, but it failed so terribly that I couldn't even finish the exam. It just kept crashing, and the interface was just horrible. But that's been a few years, so I'm hoping it's better. But it was all performance based versus the Linux Plus stuff. There's a lot of um, it's multiple choice. There are some simulations on the Linux Plus exam, whereas the LFCS exam was an actual live environment, but it was a miserably crashy live environment. So there's that. Yeah, let me. I think Masad was saying that because I asked how the course is getting out. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, it's not. I'm so behind. I really am behind. I mean, I have like a chart on the wall over there, like one of those thermometer charts, where you like do what you're supposed to. I'm not even hitting the minimum required for my job, so I'm a little bit concerned about that. But hopefully, like I showed that image earlier, right? Hopefully, life will slow down a bit. From my experience being a Linux admin, here, let me pop this up. It's kind of a long one. I don't want it to go away. Mainly Windows and Mac computers. Is there a day job, but is there a Linux Plus course that passed the LPIC Essentials? Get experience in Linux administration. The bits, of course, don't teach. This one I do definitely know the answer to. It ended up being 2 comments. I couldn't post it all up there. But Mason, set up a home lab. I mean, that is my biggest advice there. It doesn't even have to be on a super powerful like setup. But if you have an old desktop machine or even an old laptop, if you could install a hypervisor or something like Proxmox or anything, and just set up a home lab. You know, my data center at the farm is just a souped up home lab, but I actually host things from it. And uh, if you have the ability to have incoming ports, you know, you can set up dynamic DNS and actually do some real hosting. You know, you can actually host live stuff. I mean, even if you can't use the standard ports with your internet connection, you could still host stuff on the live internet, you know, on different port numbers, and to just get a feel for doing stuff and set up everything from, you know, like your own custom like Heimdall server for like making like a landing page with shortcuts and links and a dashboard and um, like a Plex server or something. Plex is kind of beefy if you're really doing stuff there, but yeah, just that kind of a thing. Set up something locally and set up servers so that you can actually manage them and update them and like play with the, you know, system deconfiguration files to start and stop them, or if they're Docker things, like learn how to keep those going or starting automatically and keep them updated and all that kind of a stuff. That's my recommendation is lab it up. You know, that's kind of a cliche thing that you hear YouTubers and trainers say, but I mean, it's just so it's fun. You know, first of all, it's just fun. Maybe I should do a list of things that are fun to host yourself, just, you know, for the heck of it. Um, you know, I mean, web pages are cool. I like to, you know, I use Caddy as a reverse proxy so that I can just use a single IP address and have all sorts of services running behind it. Because with a reverse proxy, you know, you can point all these different DNS names to your one IP address. And then when it comes in as a request, like to home.brainofsean.com, my Caddy reverse proxy says, okay, the request is coming to me, you know, at my IP address, but coming to the DNS name home.brainofsean.com. And then it knows to redirect that to my internal web server um, where I host stuff. So yeah, definitely, I would definitely do that. It's just it's a ton of fun, and it's the best way to learn is to do. And so I like that even better than, you know, just setting up VMs of machine, like actually make it do something useful and, you know, use it. And then you have to think about things like security and all of those other aspects that if you're just doing a quick, you know, virtual machine on your laptop or whatever that's not connected to the internet, it's good, but it's not quite the same as doing a home lab setup. So yeah. Uh, dun, dun. Let's see. I missed a whole bunch here because I was yammering. Samples and tests. Hello, Masoud. Could you tell me more about your college or university and which state you were born? Man, it's starting to sound like you're data mining for. No, just kidding. Oh yeah, it's not a secret at all. I'm from Michigan in the U.S. I went to college or university at Michigan Tech, but I did not graduate from there. Michigan Tech University is up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, MTU. It's a great college. It's an engineering college, and that's the reason I went there out of high school. I was a smart kid in school, and I got some scholarships, and so I went right up to university, even though I was a really poor kid. The scholarships meant that I could go somewhere like, you know, Michigan Tech. So I went there for 2 years. I didn't. I went through a bunch of math classes. By the time I got to calculus 3, they were doing things with numbers that I didn't think needed to be done to numbers. And so I dropped out. I actually went into the writing program at Michigan Tech for a semester, which was a little weird. They had a technical writing program, but it was clearly not even remotely close to one of the things I specialized in. And after that, I dropped out of college and came home and started a business that failed because I'm a lot of things, but a business person is not one of them. Yeah, that's it. But yeah, I'm a Michigan native. I was born and raised in Detroit, and now I live in northern Michigan. Uh, like if this is the map of Michigan, I currently live like between the pinky and the ring finger. That's where I live near the water. You can see uh, the water from my house's front window. I don't have waterfront property, but you can see the water through some trees. So, uh, well, let's see. Bite moves. Hope everything else going okay and catch up with work if you don't have really. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, that is the frustrating part. And I mean, and it's still frustrating. My wife is still recovering very slowly from her third surgery. And, she's capable of doing a lot of things on her own, but I still, I still do a lot of stuff for her. She still can't drive. She still can't, do a lot of stuff. So I don't want to say I'm a caregiver because that's more than I'm doing at this point. But yeah, all the things that she can't do and, help her do. And so that'll probably be another couple months, I'm guessing, before she's able to. So I'm going to be in Oregon the first week of May, or the first full week of May, and um hoping, that's like one more month away. So the hope is that she'll be able to drive by then, because she'll have to drive. Otherwise, our kids, I mean, we have adult kids, they can come and drive her around. But I think in another month she'll be able to drive. And so that'll be good because I'll be gone for a week. So yeah, you're right. I mean, without the craziness of life going on, it's a lot easier to get caught up at work. And it's funny, you'd think that now that my kids are grown and on their own, that it would be like, and we're empty nesters, that things would be calm, but it seems like just the opposite. Like when the kids were younger and in school, they were in school all day. And now, they're adults, and we don't they do most of the stuff on their own, but it seems like there's new things, like it used to be we had to worry about our little kids, and then during the school day they were in school, but now we have other things that we worry about. So it's an interesting life is interesting when you get older. Mason, let's see. I'm gonna pop these up because I'm way behind on comments. Doing other things, ESXi server. Oh yeah, keep that ESXi server running. I don't think they're available anymore. I think after the buyout, I don't think you can get ESXi for free anymore. I mean, maybe you paid for it, but um, yeah, I was gonna start using ESXi on one of my machines, and after the buyout, I guess they completely eliminated the free ESXi option out there. So that's unsettling. Uptime Kuma and Jellyfin Minecraft server. Oh, cool, cool, cool. Um, yeah, maybe I'll let me. Where do I have somewhere? I have a list of lists. Let me. Uh, I have an ideas list. I'll put that in my ideas list. This has been here for quite a while. I don't remember writing that there. Let's see. List of good home labs projects for learning and having fun. You could check out some folks on YouTube as well, like Techno Tim. He does a lot of really cool home lab stuff. Um, Trying to think who I know. He just does a lot of really cool home lab stuff. In fact, some of the stuff that I've played with, I got ideas from him. Like he uses some. Oh, like what is it called? Snapdrop, is that what it's called? Yeah. So I've used this program called Snapdrop that I like self-host, uh that you can do Apple's AirDrop kind of thing, but with non-Apple products. And I got that working. It was a little bit funky, but Techno Tim did a different project that does the same sort of thing because he didn't get it working right. Where With Snapdrop, I did get it working right, and I pointed him to my video. But yeah, he does a lot of fun projects like that, and that's just a really fun way to learn. So yeah, you're definitely doing the right things there. Let's see if things are running in a VM. Takes the edge off getting things wrong. That's true. Yeah, it's so much easier to blow away a VM than to like reinstall, like, have to have a bootable USB drive to get a, bare metal thing going. Yeah, VMs are nice, and containers are really nice too, where you can just like start them and stop them. Oh, let's see. Linux Simmer, 30 years old now. Oof, what do I think about his future? It's become so ubiquitous. And I don't mean to use a $10 word there, but it's just everywhere, right? I mean, Linux runs most of the cloud. Linux runs, I mean, Android phones. Linux runs a lot of embedded hardware. Linux is just everywhere. I don't think, I mean, it's not going anywhere as far as where its future is. I think we're just going to continue to see things abstracted out, uh, but the underlying code will be, Linux, and not just Linux, but open source projects too. Because I mean, Linux at the end of the day is just the kernel, but there's so many open source projects that are becoming ubiquitous. I mean, look at Kubernetes, right? I mean, that was Google's open source project, and now, I mean, there's like KubeCon, and Kubernetes is like taking over how people scale cloud apps and stuff. And um, secret, I've never really used Kubernetes, if I'm being completely honest, but I get it. I know what it is, and it's great, and I understand why it's popular. But I think that Linux and other open source projects like that are going to continue to be um, almost looked past, and just like they're assume they're going to be there. But things like the vulnerabilities with XZ, which I'm sure everybody saw in the news, where there was intentional malicious code in a project that had been embedded in so many other things. I think we're going to have to approach how all of that code is audited in the future, because little projects like that. And a couple of years ago, there was like a JavaScript package. I don't remember the details, that was in things that just like caused everything to collapse. XKCD did a comic on it where it was like, all these like building block things. And then like there was one tiny little leg. It was like one JavaScript hack that somebody had maintained in their spare time for 20 years. And like when there's a vulnerability in it, it kind of like crumbled everything. But XZ was different. XZ was I mean, that was malicious code. So that's, yeah, I don't know. The future is going to have to be more security focused, I think, because all of those back end packages are taken for granted so much that it's awesome, but also it's a scary vector for attack. So yeah, I guess I didn't expect that run-on sentence to go there, but yeah. And yeah, with Red Hat, I know that's I mean, I kind of said my stuff about Red Hat at the time. There's a video of me talking about Red Hat on YouTube. I don't know. I mean, I don't begrudge them making money, but I thought they did some creepy things, and it's frustrating. I'm sure it's frustrating for them when all their stuff is just repackaged and given away, but the value that they add, if they're using yeah, I mean, I can't just get into the whole um morality of open source. I think that's really what the arguments are, is what is right morally versus legally, and if it's right legally, does that make it right morally? And those are questions that yeah. Oh, Bite Moose here. I just got down to this comment. Yeah, make sure XZ doesn't happen again, because that's huge. I mean, that's scary, and we need to, companies that are relying so heavily on Linux and open source stuff, they need to think about who's auditing those small packages that can have enormous impact on stuff. That's a scary thing. Do I think it's going to mean that open source packages, or that open source is used less? No, I don't, because it's the way that things are done now, and it's so effective that I don't think open source utilization is going to go away. Um, but what I'm curious about is, will will it mean that companies invest more into uh, open source packages, auditing code, adding security, pull requests and stuff, or I don't know what it's going to look like when those things are addressed. I don't think that open source is going away, but I think that we might see some changes in the way that those are approached. Lewis, let's take a mulligan. Let's mulligan it all today. Yeah. So Lewis is referencing earlier today. I was at church with my wife, and the pastor made a golf um, metaphor about a mulligan. I don't remember what the object was, but my wife didn't know what a mulligan was, and she asked me. She's like, "What is a mulligan?" And I explained, mulligan is like you take it back, or oh, it doesn't count. I'll do a do over. And she's like, "Oh, sounded like an Irish beer to me." And I just love my wife. She's funny. So anyway, yeah, that was the that was the mulligan reference. Let's see. Xorg is 30 years old, like a lot of distros, about to abandon it. Yeah. Um, Unix was about 30 when Linux really took off. Uh, yeah. Now, Xorg, there's so there's so much of um it's difficult to accept change for change's sake, but I do realize that X.org has a lot of um, uh, security issues, compatibility issues, scalability issues. it has a lot of issues that just patching can't address, but it's so ingrained in everything that, yeah, the switch to something like Wayland is difficult, because, so many things are dependent on X.org and the X.org way of doing things. So I don't know how the transition is still going slowly. I think there's still a lot of, X11 stuff out there. And then there's also the compatibility layer that, is going to have to be built in. I mean, every app isn't going to just stop working. So the compatibility is going to have to be either in all the applications where they work with either Xorg or Wayland, or Wayland is going to have some severe backwards compatibility, or both probably. And I just saw Lewis. I know that's a comment up ahead, but Wayland sucks. And yeah, I've had nothing but heartbreak with Wayland, but I did have to learn about it pretty in depth. It's been a couple of years ago, but when it was in development, because I had to teach about, like what Wayland was versus, X11. And it's fascinating how complicated it is, and all of the good things that Wayland will bring to the table, but it's so frustrating. The transition is going to be drastic. And it's one of those things that part of it's just going to be tearing off the band-aid, but it's significant. I mean, it's very significant, and it is going to depend on, support from hardware vendors, and I mean, GPU drivers and Linux has a long ugly history too. So, if they're closed source drivers, are they going to how's that going to work? And the open source version of the drivers, like Nvidia now has open source drivers. I've never had luck with them working well. Honestly, I tried to get them to work, and it just didn't work. If I installed the proprietary drivers, everything worked. And the last time I was using NVIDIA drivers in Wayland, it didn't work. I had to go back to X11 because I was trying to trying to do the change, right? I was trying to do the good thing and use Wayland, but it just didn't work with NVIDIA hardware at the time. That's been a while. That was when I was using Linux in the desktop, but it's a huge transition. I think that Xorg to Wayland transition is one of the bigger ones that we're dealing with. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens there. Dun, dun. Oh, a dropout here. So yeah, that's and here's the thing. Oh, well, okay, the joke first. There's a virus called Linux. If you install it once, you can't remove it. Yeah. That was, yeah, it got installed in my life after my car accident, right? That's the reason I'm a Linux guy, is because Linux was free. Um, if you've been around a while, you know my story about how I got started in Linux. But yeah, I'm a college dropout. But uh, I, I mean, I just gave you the short version there. The big deal was when I was at Michigan Tech, they had a lot of really great computer labs, right? I mean, they had a Next lab, the NEXT, the pre Mac OS 10 stuff that Steve Jobs did with the Next company. They had a lab of Next cubes, and I ended up skipping most of my engineering classes and hanging out in the computer labs because that is what fascinated me. I loved Unix. I loved networking. Networking was and is one of my favorite things ever. And at the time, this is the early 90s, you could not get any sort of college degree in networking. You just couldn't. There was no, there was computer science. That was the degree. You could get computer science, and all that meant was C and C++ programming. That's the only college degree you could get that was computer related. And I didn't want to be a developer. I kind of wish I would have taken development classes, because it's been a struggle of mine now, wishing I could be more of a dev. But at the time, I didn't want to be a developer, and I wanted to do networking. The only way you could do networking is to do networking. You just had to learn from people on the job, and that's what I ended up doing. I dropped out of college because college couldn't teach me what I really loved and what I wanted to do. And so I did. I dropped out, started a business. It failed. Worked for another business that was established. A guy, Dennis, I'm sure you're not watching, but you still live in the town I live in now. He hired me, and I was doing stuff for a bunch of businesses in the town I live in now. Is not the town I lived in then. I was working in the town that I live in now. Anyway, um, there were a bunch of businesses that had like 10 base 2 the BNC connectors, the British Naval connectors, the 10 megabit networks all over. And, I learned all about networking there. And that's what I loved. And so that's why, yeah, I mean, now I don't necessarily recommend dropping out of college, but now college is so expensive too that I don't recommend you go there unless you really need to. But that's another whole live stream topic, I suppose. Oh, let's see. Mason, that was a free version. Yeah. Um, so for what it's worth, I love Proxmox. I truly do. I'm just a huge fan of Proxmox. I have I've used it for years now, and I just love it. I used ESXi back when I worked at the school district. That's what we had. We couldn't afford to pay for, the things where they communicated and you could transfer over anything. So we just had several ESXi servers, and I would just manually move things if I had to. But anyway, yeah, now that there's no free version, you can't even download it. So like I said, yeah, keep it until you don't want it anymore, because I don't think you can get it again. And that's scary stuff. Samples and tests. My job, I work independently. To work in a given day, but I have a work schedule that keeps me on track. I mean, that's cool. My job, yeah, I mean, I have that too. Um, I have a work schedule that I should stick to that I just haven't been able to yet. So I hope that I can get to that point. Um, yeah, it's tough. It seems like, so my wife works Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So she's at work. Once I take her to work, I have that whole day to do work. But it seems like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday seem to be the things that, or the days that everything goes wrong. And so I end up like putting out little fires here and there that aren't work related. And yeah, that's just an excuse. It's not or that's a reason. It's not an excuse. I just gotta figure it out. Automotive Linux is another one. Now, is this Bite Moose, is this something for vehicles? Are we talking about automotive Linux like in a vehicle? And if so, does this is this like an engine computer software, or is this like an infotainment system software? I'm a little curious what I don't know what I think you might have mentioned automotive Linux before, and I don't remember. I probably asked the exact same question. Um, let's see. I want to know my opinion on combining of Internet of Things, machine learning, and AI cloud. Well, I have thoughts on all those things. So I love the Internet of Things, and Internet of Things for me is mostly to do with home automation. I like having things in my house be network addressable and controllable and things like that. AI, I'm not sure what I think about AI, to be completely honest. It's icky in a lot of ways. I can see it doing, being beneficial in some ways. I can see it taking people's jobs and doing a questionable job by um, a questionable job of thing, or a questionable uh, ability, while just rehashing actual people's works. I don't know. I don't have a lot of love for AI, but I don't. It's not going away anytime soon. So I don't know. And then cloud computing. It's interesting with cloud computing now. I keep reading more and more often that there are companies who fully migrated to the cloud, and I'm teaching uh, Google Cloud courses that are like showing all of the advantages of moving to the cloud and why it's so great. But in some instances, and it seems like more and more instances of late, moving to the cloud is not always cheaper, and some people are moving back to their own managed data centers, especially if you are doing things that require a lot of expensive um, cloud technologies, like GPU stuff, or lots of storage, or just lots of heavy usage. It seems like at some point the advantage of the cloud being able to pay, piecemeal, is overshadowed by the expense of that, versus needing to pay for things upfront and managing the systems, the underlying systems. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, cloud's not going away anytime soon, obviously, but it is interesting that it hasn't just completely taken over everything. And in some instances, there are companies that have found going back to their own data centers have been beneficial. And I think it's going to just be hybrid. I mean, there are some things that are always going to be more beneficial in the cloud, and some things apparently are going to be more beneficial to do locally. So that hybrid cloud idea is probably where we're going long term. Uh, Hopefully that answers some of the questions. Yeah. Lewis, I know I'm way behind here, but yeah, I kind of agree with Lewis. I don't like. I've never had a good experience with Wayland. Um, and Mason, Wayland is it's it's yeah, it's a GUI for Linux, completely rewritten from scratch. It's not just patching X11 or X.org, whatever you want to call it. Um, for the end user, it ideally will be more configurable, easier to manage, and more flexible. The problem is that it's just not, and everything is designed for X.org, so it's backwards. It's frustrating for anybody to try to implement it without the proper hardware. I think if you have stuff like, Intel has been pretty great about having open source stuff for their GPUs. I think that's still the case with their fancy new um, Intel Arc stuff. I hope that's still the case. And I'm guessing, stuff like that will make Wayland work well. But, NVIDIA is the big hitter, big heavy hitter. And there have been issues with Wayland, at least last time I tried. I'm sure that things are getting better, but last time I tried with Wayland and NVIDIA was just frustrating. Had to change NVIDIA drivers on this Ubuntu box. I'm curious now, Bite Moose, are you using the proprietary drivers now? Because with NVIDIA, like, they have their open source drivers. And I don't mean the like Novu or whatever, like the non-NVIDIA drivers that like sort of work but not accelerated. I don't mean that. I mean actual NVIDIA drivers. They have like an open source version and their proprietary version. And I never got the open source ones to work on my systems. I always had to just do the proprietary ones, and then they normally work. Versioning with like the drivers and the tools can be frustrating too, because they're all, it's not like if you're using driver version 535, I don't know if that's an actual version number, but using like NVIDIA 535, you have to make sure that you have the right utils version. And if you're using CUDA, you have to make sure you're using the right version of CUDA for the right version of your drivers. And then the software you're using has to be compiled with the correct CUDA version. It can be very, very frustrating. I Advanced Monkey, good evening. Yeah, a lot of folks are from like Europe and the surrounding areas that tune in. So yeah, you're not alone. It's evening a lot of places. Sorry about that. But hello, 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 hello. Let's see. Computer degrees are not worth the time and money these days. It's almost like but Moose, I mean, I agree with you too. There are some things I think that like in the development world, I think that you can get trained as a developer in college with a degree, but it feels more vocational these days than traditional college education to me. So yeah, I don't know. And a lot of things it's easier to learn while doing instead of learning the theoretical stuff behind it. So I don't know. I mean I certainly identify with your statement there. Yeah. What is this? Turning containers only for my stuff. No need to run VMs. That's a Windows mindset. So it's funny. I do this a lot, Lewis, with Proxmox. I have Proxmox, and Proxmox has containers that are built in, but they're LXD containers instead of like Docker containers, which is interesting. I use those containers if I want like what feels like a full blown installation. I will use an LXD container in my Proxmox server. The only time that has proven to be difficult is if I want to launch Docker containers, right? It's supposedly possible, and I tried once with not great results, to install Docker on an LXD container, and then try to use that LXD container as the Docker host, it just was wonky, even if with all the proper things enabled and stuff. So now what I do is if I'm going to run Docker, I will actually install a VM and then I'll run Docker on that VM. But otherwise, I too use containers for everything. I try to use Docker containers for most apps that I run. Um, but if I want, like I said, a full blown operating system, I'll use an LXD container in Proxmox because it's just cool. And I don't, I probably should. I don't use snapshots for backups. Oh, you say which is a very bad idea. So maybe it's not bad that I don't do it. I don't know that I would know how to restore a backup snapshot very well. And so that I tend to try to use like my backup PC program. It's an old, I don't recommend it necessarily, but I use backup PC as my backup system. And then I just try to make sure that I can back up files to there. And so like I'll do database dumps. Like if I have a database server, I'll do a regular dump of it. And then I'll just have my backup server back up the folder full of dumps so that if I had to restore it, I could. So that's how I do backups. Probably not ideal. I'm sure there's a better way to do backups, but that's how I do it. Automotive Linux. Read out that. So that's cool. I like the idea of an open source and standardized computer system for a vehicle, especially with EVs coming out more and more. It's just scary because I mean, car computers have historically been so ancient and terrible that that has concerned me. There's some concern that I would want to make sure that it's very secure. And I worry that the older types of computer systems in cars, they're only secured by obfuscation just because nobody really knows much about them. And that seems unsettling. So yeah, automotive Linux. That's interesting. I should read more about that because that does fascinate me. Um It'll rain from the cloud as people leave. They can't afford it. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, the big thing that cloud computing does is it takes and I should preface this. This is not official. I'm not this doesn't count as training. Okay. This is not cloud computer training. This is just us talking as nerds. Um, it takes the capital expenses of buying a whole bunch of servers. It takes that capital expense away and it just makes your operating expense much higher. The idea is that you can scale up and down so that your operating expense is more manageable and budgetable and all that sort of thing. Whereas with those big capital purchases, where you have to buy a bunch of servers and you have to overbuy so that you have room to grow and that sort of a thing. I mean, cloud computing can offer some drastic savings there, but at some point, yeah, if the costs for those cloud endeavors get so high, uh I don't know. I think we're just going to continue to see hybrid clouds kind of go, the levels of how much is in the cloud and how much you're doing on your own are just going to vary and eventually people will find the spot that makes the most sense for them. So, anyway. Yeah, that's what I have to do every time I install NVIDIA drivers. I have to use the closed source ones even though they have those. Like I said, NVIDIA does have the open source ones, but I have never gotten them to work. And I don't mean the Novu either. I mean there's like three different kinds, right? There's that Novu, which is not from NVIDIA, that will like get your NVIDIA card to give you text, but there's no graphical acceleration. And then there's the open source NVIDIA drivers that I've never gotten to work right. And then there's the closed source proprietary NVIDIA drivers, which are the only ones that I've ever gotten to work with acceleration and stuff. So yeah. Version 50 or 550.67. Okay, of NVIDIA, yeah. And then there seem to be some like popular versions, like like version this and it's stable. Maybe they have like stable releases that they do every so often. I don't know, to be quite honest. I don't know. And now that I'm not running data centers with full of GPUs and stuff anymore, I don't even know the current versions, or because when I was doing the system administration in the when I was a sysadmin for crypto stuff in like a bunch of data centers, uh, we had to have very specific driver versions for our NVIDIA hardware too, because some of the newer versions of their drivers would crash, as you know, with doing some of the intense workload that we're doing. So there were a few that were like older but stable that we would have to use, and yeah, it was an interesting time. Northern Chimp, hello. Yeah, it would be nice to be able to install custom OS in our car. However, you know, the gotcha there is I also, you know, I wouldn't want to be running beta software in my car, you know, especially if the car you know, is more and more computerized, you know, like when, you know, in the world of EVs, you know, if I don't want my brakes to stop working because the braking system thinks it's going to regenerative braking, and the regenerative braking is like, oh no, I'm not going to do. You know, we'll let the brakes take over. I mean, I could just see terrible things happening with, you know, software glitches. So automotive Linux, or just automotive. I mean, I don't realize that's an actual distro, but um, automotive operating system and software is something that is, I think, going to just be more and more interesting as time goes on. And I hope it's the kind of thing that there's some more standards in place. So we'll see. Um, what is this? Am I having a discussion? Containers or VMs? A question of level of security. Yes and no. There's more to it than that. Um, containers so some in some ways containers are less secure because you're sharing kernel space with other applications. I think that containers are very decent at security these days, so you know, they're less dangerous than maybe they were years ago. But that was always one of the complaints about the idea of containers, is if you're sharing kernel space with other apps that you don't have control of, or that, you know, what if one container is compromised, what could it do to the host kernel that could, you know, cause issues? Whereas virtual machines were more isolated because all of their hardware and their operating system was completely virtualized. Um, so it depends on how you're approaching security. The night I just containers are just very convenient because you don't have to maintain an operating system, which makes them far more portable. You know, it doesn't matter who, you know, if the computer is running an RPM based distro or a Deb based distro or Slackware, it doesn't matter because all of the libraries are self-contained in the container. And I'm kind of talking about Docker specific stuff here, but like with LXD containers, you get like basically a fully bootable system, but you don't have to worry about kernel version. You know, you don't actually interface with the kernel. You have, yeah, I don't. I think it's more than a level of security. It's there's a lot of convenience, a lot of portability that containers give you because they've abstracted away the operating system, which is just awesome. Renault Million EV as of current model use automotive Linux as the thing. Oh, that is awesome. That's really, really cool. Um, wow. And do you, and this might be down to local, oh man, we're almost out of time. This might be down to local laws too. I don't know, but do you have access to that Linux as an owner? Lewis, like, can you, you know, if I mean it's your car, do you have access to it? Do you have to like root your car like you would root a phone back in the day if you wanted to have root access? Because that's interesting. That's interesting. Don't look at the electric Jaguar. Braking means oh yikes. That's unsettling. Yeah, I don't have an electric car yet. Drive by wire is scary in general. Yeah, for sure. And just the you know, just all the things that computers control. I mean, you know, if my desktop computer crashes, it means I have to restart it. If my car computer crashes, it might mean I've crashed. You know, and those are two drastically different scenarios that are scary. I mean, the airplane industry has seen that, right? I mean, the software fails that have caused crashes. I mean, that's just terrifying. So, anyway, um, No, it's the thing that drives the car. Okay, so you don't have access to it. Okay. All right. Interesting. 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 And I look at that. I caught up with the comments almost just in time. We got like 5 minutes left. So you have no access to modifying anything. Yeah, I mean that is a good thing, but I just wonder. I mean, what if somebody nefarious, roots your car? I mean, maybe I'm sure that there's a lot of thought and protection put into that, but yeah, just car operating systems in general are a bit terrifying because of the seriousness of what's going on. Like I said, if my desktop computer crashes, oh, that sucks. If my car crashes, I've crashed, and so or potentially could crash. I mean, if it locks up, what does that mean? Does it revert to manual control? I would hope so, but maybe not. So anyway, we live in an interesting time. Yeah, I know. Almost done for another week. I'm a little bummed about that too, because this is fun stuff we're talking about. But uh Roots is locked in there and driven to look at. Yeah, I mean, we've seen, well, I've seen movies where somebody takes over control of a vehicle, right? And in the movies that I've seen, it's impractical. I mean, the cars that they're taking over are just cars with, their computer systems control like the emissions and stuff like that. So if you controlled somebody's car, you could stall it probably, or make it run too rich and fall out the spark plugs. But we're starting to get to the place in the automotive and technological world where taking over someone's car computer really means taking over somebody's car computer. So yeah, I don't know. That's gonna be scary stuff. I mean, already you can do so much remotely that you couldn't do just 10 years ago. I mean, my car has over the air, meaning over the internet, starting it, unlocking it, doing all sorts of stuff to it. I can start my car remotely over the internet from anywhere in the world. Well, that means that if something is compromised, somebody else could do that kind of stuff too. So yeah. That control over the car is done via vulnerabilities and Wi-Fi hotspot, and access to the CAN bus. I mean, yeah, and again, there's in order for something to be entertaining, there has to be a kernel of truth into it. No pun intended, kernel of truth. But I mean, the things I've seen, basically, the car turns into a sentient being, and we're not there, but yeah, there's stuff that can be done, and it's only going to get more and more intense. Uh, Locked in a car, can't get out. Root has set the rating smooth jazz. You can't change it. Uh, I mean, there's an old standing joke like, uh, I'm sure it was some stereotype person like, oh, did you hear about the guy who um, locked his keys in his car? Yeah, he couldn't get his family out for a week. But now that could actually happen where you can't get out. uh, but it was patched. Can't recall which brand, maybe Ford, maybe so. And again, the degree to which things could be controlled, I'm sure, was limited, but still scary. I mean, still scary. There's going to be vulnerabilities. I mean, who knows what if a car has XV in it, and if so, I mean, cars are probably getting updated frequently now, but it used to be updating a software in a car meant taking it to a shop, and sometimes you couldn't even upgrade. You had to get new hardware. Firmware wasn't upgradable. A lot of head end units on cars that I've had, like if there was something that went wrong, you could not upgrade the software. You had to buy new hardware, which is just crazy. And I think they did that so that somebody couldn't um, put something nefarious on it, but at the same time, when you can't do security updates, that's scary too. So it wasn't limited at all. But I mean, there's okay, Lewis. But what I'm saying is like there are things that the computer can't drive the car unless you're talking about like a self-driving car that had a vulnerability. Maybe that was the case. But like, I mean, most cars, there just isn't a connection between, you know, turning and stuff. Again, this is all degrees. I know there are like lane change stuff, so maybe there is something that could be done, but um, it would have been limited. And I do believe you. I do believe that there is stuff that you could that could be vulnerable, hacked, and controlled. But anyway, um, I'm sure it was a more expensive vehicle than I could afford. So, oh man, we're already out of time. Yes, I'll bite Moose. Have a good weekend, everybody. Samples and tests. Speaking of reboot, my computer's freaking out. All right, well, the stream is over. So, have a great week, everyone. Thanks again for tuning in and talking nerdy with me. I always appreciate it. And wish me luck this week as I get braces and hopefully get a whole bunch of work caught up. Yeah, see how things go. Have a good one. Learn everything. Do what you love, and most importantly, be kind, especially if you see like an old guy with braces next week.